Hi guys, welcome back to this next video in the series where we're covering the business analysis practice sample paper. And now we're moving on to question 11 this time. So, as always, we always read through the question very clearly and understand the context of the question. We look at the instructions, and we also look at, or we try and identify which area of the knowledge or your studies they're trying to test us on here. So, it says here, you have been discussing your latest assignment with your manager. He said, we need to complete an initial investigation into introducing robots to speed up claims handling. At the moment, there are 3 key stakeholders, one of whom is a senior and opposed to further automation. There's also sensitivity due to recent job losses in the claims teams. Some of the procedures relating to claims handling are out of date, with some local practices having been developed over the 2 locations where it takes place. What would be the first step? Okay, so what we can establish from this contextually is that we are now a business analyst and we're on an assignment and we have a manager, and the manager is now giving us this statement. So we need to, from this statement, extract what are we actually doing as a business analyst here, and what do we need to do? So how do we apply our knowledge to this specific scenario? So if we now look at the 4 answers, we can see interview the stakeholders, hold a workshop with stakeholders, undertake a document analysis, observe the process at both locations. So the easiest way to identify the area of knowledge that they're trying to study here from this particular question is actually from the answers themselves. We can see that all 4 of these answers here are different types of investigation techniques. And as we should know, that investigation techniques and investigations in the area of business analysis is a large part of business analysis. In business analysis, we need to go out to these different locations in these organizations, speak to stakeholders about different projects and assignments or about software products and gather their information from them at various levels, maybe even from sort of an enterprise all the way through down to a task level. And we also need to speak to all different types of stakeholders in the organization and the project. So at this stage of your studies, you would know that investigation and using investigation techniques, which essentially is going out and gathering information, either by gathering data or information from sort of documents and text, or by actually going out and talking to people or facilitating these environments where you would be talking to people in different contexts in order to gather information for the assignment or for the organization, whatever it may be. Looking into a problem, looking into an opportunity, looking into how a new solution can be used in an organization. Investigation is a large part of business analysis. And from your studies, you should know that there's all those different types of investigation techniques, the quantitative and the qualitative investigation techniques. We know that in terms of speaking to real people, tangible people, we have things like the interviews where we have these one-on-one sessions, or not. It's not necessarily, or doesn't specifically have to be a one-on-one session, but it's not commonly a big group of people. It's usually 1, 2, or 3 people in an interview, but it's used for a specific purpose. The reason why we do an interview is because it's more personal. We can get more deeper insight into individual perspectives, and there's more confidentiality because it's not a sort of an open forum where people can speak and share information. There's a lot of benefits to using interviews. They're often used for initial contact. to sort of build up rapport with people. So all the different types of techniques that you use to gather information or talk to people in investigations are used for different things. Workshops, it says there in B, hold a workshop with the stakeholders. So workshops are another area of the investigation techniques. And they're used for a different purpose. They may be used for a larger group of people. And it could be a facilitated workshop where we get all these people together and we actually guide them through the workshop, and we actually have these specific activities in the workshop in order to extract the right kind of information from them. And then C, it says undertake a document analysis. So document analysis is going into an organization and looking for specific documents and analyzing the documents in order to gather information. So it's not actually going and speaking to somebody, but it's actually getting text, specific text and information in the form of documentation. Then observe the process at both locations. That's what selection D says. So here they're making reference to the observation technique. And observations are where we would go into the organization and we would actually look, maybe sometimes from a distance, at what is taking place in the organization. What is someone actually doing in their daily lives in order to carry out these tasks? How is this process in this organization taking place? We may even conduct more focused sort of shadowing, formal shadowing and formal observations and shadowing techniques where we actually go and a person may even be using a system, and we will sit with them and we'll shadow them, and they'll run through a step-by-step process and tell us what they do in order to accomplish this task and carry out this process. And it's very valuable because we may identify certain things as they're going through this process. But all of these different investigation techniques have got advantages and they've got disadvantages. And we as business analysts need to select the most appropriate techniques for the context of the situation. So if we read this caption here where the manager, this is what the manager said, so we need to utilize this information because the manager is the senior who's actually guiding us and decide what's the best thing to do firstly. So that's the instructions. And it says, we need to complete an initial investigation into introducing robots to speed up claims handling. Okay, so the context of the conversation or the assignment is introducing robots or machinery to speed up this process, this claims handling process that is taking place inside an organization. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve this process, or we're trying to improve something in the organization, and we need to now start the key word here is investigation. So there, even in itself, it's indicating to us that we are carrying out an investigation. Therefore, we need to use specific investigation techniques to do this. And the next sentence says, at the moment, there are 3 key stakeholders, one of whom is a senior and opposed to further automation. So from this statement, first of all, we can see that there's only 3 stakeholders that we need to carry out this investigation. So if we go through all the options, why would we need to hold a workshop, which takes a lot of planning to get a larger group of people and get all these activities set up in order to extract information from people? That would take a lot of planning and time. Why would we carry out a formal workshop if we've only got 3 stakeholders? And another keyword in there where they say the senior is opposed to further automation. So he's actually opposed to this introduction of robots to speed up claims handling. So there may be this element of sensitivity there. And where there is sensitivity, you may need to talk to people on a much more personal or one-on-one basis. Because when people are in a larger group of people in a workshop or some other form of a collaborative forum, they are less likely to actually view their true opinions. They're more likely to be dominated by dominant personalities, and more of a group consensus comes together. So if you've got all these people that want to consent, they'll say, this is great, let's do this, let's introduce robots. But one of the managers is there, and he's now being overpowered by the group, and there's something that needs to, some information that needs to be extracted from him about why he's opposed to this. Why are we then going to get this huge group of people together in a workshop or something like this? It's better to just take him on a one-on-one, more confidential, more personal, to more investigate into just his perspective, and not more this broader perspective that you would gain from a workshop. Then the third thing is to undertake document analysis. Why would we want to go and find document analysis when there's an actual person that we need to get this information from? Because it's saying to us there's 3 key stakeholders, and it's saying that this one person is opposed to it. So this is more the key person that we need to speak to about this. So why would we now go into this organization and say, oh, let's go and find some documentation in relation to this? It's not going to be very valuable to get that documentation. Even if we get documentation on a system or about the organization, an organization chart or a process map or whatever it is, whatever information that has been written down or documented in a textual format, it's not really going to help us with the situation. So then if we continue reading the scenario, it says, there is also sensitivity due to recent job losses in the claims team. So this whole sensitivity thing, the fact that he's opposed to it and there's sensitivity, so there's a bit of a negativity in this organization, it's better to use a one-on-one style, because it's personal, it's more confidential. You can actually get more information in a private way. You can get their true perspective on it. Whereas if you're in a larger group of people, it's not really going to help. Even if you're observing a person. So observations are primarily there to observe a process and to see what people are doing. And in this context, they're not really telling us about a specific process that needs to be observed or a specific problem. Maybe at a later stage where they may have sort of resolved this issue that the senior has. Maybe he may have decided that the organization can't afford it, or they've tried it before and it hasn't worked. Whatever his particular issue is, to this introduction of this improvement of the organization, once that's resolved, then maybe a formal observation might take place at a later stage, where we can identify which specific steps in this process of automating this process using robots, we can then gather information for those particular steps and identify where we can make improvements on the people that are actually doing the job. But for this context, an observation is not going to help us. Neither is document analysis. Neither is a workshop. And if we finish off here, it says some of the procedures relating to claims handling are out of date, with some local practices having developed over the 2 locations where it takes place. Now, if we have 2 locations where this whole thing is taking place, it's not very cost effective in order to set up workshops in 2 different locations, because it takes more time, money, effort in order to set this up and facilitate it. And also it would take multiple observations of going to different places or finding documentation. So it's not very optimized in terms of what the best technique is. In this context, if there's just simply 3 people, we can go to the location of where these 3 people are and interview them, maybe within their workplace environment, or we may even be more. We may even have a more optimized view and actually have these 3 people all meet us in a separate location, which is outside these 2 workplace environments, so that we can, so we don't have to go to 2 different locations. That's if we had to, we needed them to collaborate or speak to them all within one sort of interview meeting or such. But as you can see, the best option here is which is interview the stakeholders. This would be the best step in this process, and we can see that because all the other options, all the other investigation techniques are just not as optimized. It's not the best way forward. It's either they're going to cost a little bit more money, they're going to take more time, or you're not really going to get what you want out of them because they're used for different purposes. So you always, when you're going into an investigation or deciding what to do for a particular assignment, you always have to select the best techniques for the best, for the context of the situation, for the context of the assignment that you are undertaking. So I hope that's helped you answer question 11. Make sure that you go through all the investigation techniques from your studies, and make sure that you know the disadvantages and the advantages of both. And I'm sure you will ace a question like this the next time something like this is asked. So I hope you have a good day, and if you are moving on to the next one, I'll see you in question 12. Goodbye.